So we'll start with back. So you had your hand up, Jonathan. What were you gonna say?
My dad was in New York.
1 second. They're making a lot of noise here. So your dad, what again?
My dad was in New York whenever it happened.
Whoa, really?
He was in the Statue of Liberty, whenever people creeped up.
Wow, man. So what was he thinking, or what did he hear when he was there, right?
He heard the plane, and he actually wasn't looking at New York whenever it
Mhm.
happened, and he just heard a big boom, and he looked, and there it was.
I agree. So yeah, that's the thing. It's amazing how many people actually were there at that time. Or like you keep hearing these stories about people who were supposed to show up at work that day, and for one reason or another, something happens, and they don't go. It's like crazy. Logan, did you hear that?
My dad and his family were having like some dinner, and out of nowhere, or like lunch, and it happened, and it was on TV, and then my dad was shocked. Like,
Mm-hmm.
really shocked.
A lot of people were. Yeah. How old was he?
But this was
Yeah.
he's 40 now, so it had to be.
So yeah, he's like my age. Okay. Anybody else? Who else had their hand up? Robert, did you hear your hand up? So, yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Those of you had me last year, I told you, yeah, I was in the Army at the time. I was like 21. And we were in Germany, and we were going to train with one of the Ranger battalions. I forgot which one. And we were supposed to go out in the woods for a few weeks. Something called FTX. It's like we're just field training exercise. And so we're going to do some Army training and all that stuff. And yeah, so this is back during flip phones. So guys were getting messages from their wives and their girlfriends. It's like, hey, something crazy's happening. Turn on the news. Well, we couldn't because we didn't have TVs. And so we had a radio, and yeah, we were hearing bits of it. But even like the people on the radio didn't know what was going on. So we were just like, super confused the whole time. But yeah, then we had our phones taken up. We weren't supposed to call home, which meant we needed something to get serious. There was talks about us going somewhere. Well, we didn't know. Like nobody knew who was doing what. Like just we didn't know if like somebody was shooting missiles in an American city or what. We didn't know who was doing what. We just thought some bad guys somewhere are doing something. And so, yeah, I didn't actually see the first pictures of it until like a couple weeks after it happened. We were out in field training, and then when they were getting like resupplied, I saw they had newspapers going around. I was like, what? So I quickly read about it, and it didn't really sink in what happened for even weeks after that. But it's my understanding in the States it was different. Like people were watching on TV live. Like my wife, still in school, and a lot of schools shut down. A lot of businesses shut down, sent the kids home. A lot of people started. They were pretty messed up from it, so they stayed at home. They say that pizza delivery services made a lot of money, but yeah, so it's like a phenomenon, like comfort food and stuff like that started selling better, right? Because people want to feel better. Yeah, there's going to be changes to the country. It's going to last all the way till now. Many of them were passed as temporary measures, but whenever the government passes a temporary measure, it never is. And this happens. Like changes like this happen after every major war the United States is in too. There's going to be growth, expansion, and say like laws that often intended for protection and stuff like that. So we see in the symbol here, we see 9/11/01. It's the American flag, that is the country. It's inside of the Pentagon, which is like it's supposed to be like the brain of our nation's defense. It's where our military does a lot of its planning, its strategic development. It's the brain. The brain of our military. The Twin Towers represented our strong economy, like our commerce and our wealth. A lot of trading and very wealthy businesses had offices within here. And of course, a lot of people work there, so had daycares and stuff like that for the kids even. And of course, one of the intended targets was Washington, D.C. They think the White House thankfully, that plane didn't make it there because the passengers fought back. And if there's one thing that goes to show, if somebody's going to do something bad, it's better to fight or run away. Like, I mean, that's why they say, like you should know, you never get in a car with somebody who's trying to kidnap you or something, right? Ever. Yeah, even if they have a weapon, it doesn't matter. You get away because if you get in the car, you're not
Unless you're
coming
trying to
back.
run away from your house.
Huh?
Unless you're trying to run away from your house, then you get into the car.
Well,
Or if it's
okay.
an Uber.
As in, no, there have been Uber drivers who've been convicted for kidnapping, murder, and stuff like that, and rape and stuff. So yeah, even if they got an Uber sticker, that doesn't mean they're old Saint Nick. You know, I mean, just don't get in a stranger's car, even though you're like, "Well, I'm in 10th grade." It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Unless you know that's true.
Well, then it's not a stranger. But my point is, the same goes for terrorism, because those passengers on that flight, because they fought back, yes, they died. They were going to die anyways, even if they didn't fight back. But at least they prevent something greater from happening, a greater tragedy, right? So, all right, so 9/11 made up of 19 terrorists hijacked 4 planes, and they were only armed with box cutters, little bitty razor blades. We'll talk about their organization and their motives in a second. The intended targets were the Twin Towers, north and south, the Pentagon, Washington, D.C. 3 of the 4 targets were hit. Washington, D.C. was not. So, at one time, these were the tallest buildings in the world. I don't know if they were whenever they went down, though. No, I mean, like, I think there was taller buildings then. I don't recall exactly. Yeah, I'm not trying to make like a bad joke. All right. So, who were these guys? They were members of an organization called Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda is an Islamic terrorist organization that wants to they wanted to do things like create a new thing called the Caliphate. This year, we will learn about the historical caliphates, which is essentially like theocratic Islamic kingdoms, where you have the religion is the government. They want to reestablish that. They were also upset about U.S. presence in what they considered the Holy Land. They thought that we were decadent and like perverting their people with Western things like consumerism and stuff like that. They thought that this could be a strike against us. And if they struck against us, we would hit them back. And they were hoping that when we hit them back, it would start like a world war in a case where Muslims could come out and join together and kick us out. They wanted to start a major war, was their motive. And they were hoping that all the Arabic people and Muslim people would join them in a fight against the United States. Didn't quite turn out the way they wanted to, but we will see that they will inspire other terrorist groups later. So I'm not going to read this here, but you do see that the hijackers came to America. And when they came to America, before they came to America, they trained as terrorists, right? I forgot what country, but they learned different tactics. They learned spycraft on how to stay undercover and not get exposed. They came to the United States. They had safe houses, and they actually got flight training. I think even here in Texas. They planned out their attacks very meticulously, and they knew this. Islamic terrorist groups, like out of Pakistan, had hijacked airplanes many times before, especially like in the 70s and 80s, right? But usually when a plane was hijacked, they had demands. It was essentially for hostages. And they would either ask for money or they would ask for their comrades to be freed from prison, right? And so whenever they knew that if they hijacked a plane, they wouldn't be shot down.
because you don't shoot the hostage, So, but they weren't intending to do that. They were intending to do something new, to use these as missiles. Al-Qaeda had attacked America before. Before President Bush took office, Al-Qaeda had made a terrorist attack on the Twin Towers by having a van with a bomb detonate in the basement of the Twin Towers. Luckily, it was okay. It wasn't strong enough to knock down the buildings. They had also attacked a naval boat with a fishing boat full of explosives, and that killed some of our sailors. In fact, the president at that time is said to have let bin Laden go, the leader of Al-Qaeda, because he didn't want to sink to their level, right? But unfortunately, he's going to come back and kill a bunch of innocent people. So the airplanes, we have American Airlines Flight 11. It's going to depart from Boston to Los Angeles, but it doesn't make it, of course. We see that all these are going from east to west as their intended destination. We have Flight 175, Flight 77, and Flight 93. Flight 93 is the one where the folks are going to fight back. In defense of those people who didn't fight back, a lot of them might not have been aware of what was going on. Some of them may have thought that they were going to be okay in the end, like all the other flights that had been hijacked before this. So in a lot of ways, it's very understandable why people just didn't try to go in and stop these guys, right? So timeline. 8:20 Flight 11 declared hijacked, and then you see only 26 minutes later it crashes in the North Tower. When this one first crashes, a lot of people in New York or watching the news thought that this was somebody's private airplane that accidentally kind of flew into a tower. It's like, oh man, that's terrible. But they didn't realize it was something this big, right? 8:42 Flight 175 is also declared hijacked, so they know something's up. And then Flight 77 is hijacked right after the first plane crashed into the towers. The president was in a school in Florida reading to school kids. First ladies usually have like a big thing where that's their thing, right? Where they kind of campaign for something. And like Michelle Obama had the child nutrition program. I think Melania Trump has anti-bullying, I think. And this one, Laura Bush, her big thing was child literacy. So she would have the president read to kids to try to promote literacy. And it's like a famous, at the time, video of him reading to kids, and then somebody tells him what's going on. It's like, oh, so like in his ear. So 9:02, Flight 175 crashes into the South Tower, broadcasted on live television. Nobody thought the towers would collapse that way, right? Like they thought it'd be a fire. They didn't think it was just going to collapse these towers. They didn't think it. They thought the towers would be strong enough to withstand this. The FAA, that's a federal agency in charge of things like airplanes and even drones, grounds all planes, like get out of the sky. Flight 93 is then declared hijacked. Flight 77 is going to crash to the west side of the Pentagon. Luckily it misses the center of the Pentagon. We're not sure why, but some people did die in that. White House is then going to be evacuated. They're going to realize something really crazy is up. As we already mentioned, the president wasn't there at the time, but there was a lot of people who work in the White House. At 9:59, South Tower will collapse. A lot, like Sears Tower in Chicago is evacuated. A lot of buildings, like I said, were evacuated, right? Because people were scared that we were being attacked across the nation. Like it could have been like a military or something, just shooting missiles or hijacking airplanes or just something all over the nation. You're going to see Flight 93 is going to crash into a field in Pennsylvania instead of DC. Then the North Tower collapses. So that's both towers, Twin Towers, and 7 World Trade Center collapses. So, the fires and things like that. And of course, the debris and explosion is going to cause other buildings to be severely damaged. It's a camera that captured the first plane. You rarely see it, but it's just an old news camera. There's a picture. The first one, the second one about the hit. Massive, terrible explosion. And so like all this was just going on, and then the collapse completely unexpected. They had firefighters rushing up to save people. Of course, also police officers. There's one story I heard of this a guy who immigrated from Ireland. He was supposed to be in charge of safety for the towers. And after the first terrorist attack on it, he took it on himself to make sure that people knew the safety plan on how to evacuate. And he would practice it week after week after week, making the whole building evacuate at times. And people really hated it. But because he did that, they say it actually may have saved a lot of people's lives, because he had them really used to just like going downstairs in an orderly manner, getting out of there, instead of all just bum rushing and, like stampeding. This is the Pentagon, where the first plane, or that one plane hit. Here's the field in Pennsylvania where Flight 193 crashed. And of course, from these planes, people were getting text messages, phone calls from loved ones about their confusion and their fear and things like that. So very, very real time, sad thing. Here's the towers as they were. And then they're gone. Of course, now there is a museum there, a memorial, with two big beams of light that are supposed to get shined up to represent the lost towers and the lives there. So the aftermath, of course, we're going to have war in Afghanistan and Iraq, especially Afghanistan, because that's where Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden have been doing a lot of their training, and where they had a lot of their friends, right? Here in America, airports and places of mass transit are going to be very bogged down with security, right? So like when I used to fly into Europe when I was in the military, it's pretty easy. You go through metal detectors, get on the plane, boop, you're out. After that, like I remember my flight back home after 9/11, oh gosh, it was like I had to go into so many super long wraparound lines, getting searched and all this other stuff. And it's still kind of like that now. I mean, it's a little more streamlined. But we're going to have the Patriot Act, and the Patriot Act is going to, its intention was so that when terrorists are using the internet and things like that and their cell phones to correspond, we're able to have their information and stop them. But how it's unfortunately used the most is that it also allowed the federal government to collect all of your internet usage and search history and your messages and all that other stuff. Of course, they're supposed to have a warrant to look at it, but they still collect it without the warrant. Homeland Security. So this is an expansion of federal police and security to. It's kind of like Border Patrol and FBI, but they're supposed to stop terrorism. The War on Terrorism, which has us, of course, supposed to stop Islamic extremism and other forms of terrorism overseas. Surge in military enrollment. Yeah, like I was already in the Army when 9/11 happened. But yeah, we had a lot of guys come in like about 4 months after it, because like the recruiters' offices, they said were like flooded with guys coming in, like upset, wanting to go fight some bad people, you know? So yeah, we had a lot of newbies show up after that. Death of Osama bin Laden. So yeah, like he escapes from Afghanistan and he's going to hide out in a country called Pakistan, which is right next to Afghanistan. Pakistan is one of those weird countries where the government says they're our friends, but the people there would fund and train and even join the terrorist organizations to go fight against us in Afghanistan. But we couldn't do anything because the government said they were our friends. So eventually, though, Osama bin Laden's doctor is going to rat out his location and give us information so we can send U.S. Navy SEALs over there and perforate his face. But the thing is, though, his poor doctor, the guy who helped us out, I think he eventually went to prison. I think he died there because they didn't like that. So yeah, his body is going to be taken and dumped into sea so that he couldn't be used as kind of like, I guess, a martyr or something like that. There's this compound where he was hiding out. So he had his family there, stuff like that. So, but the thing is, it's still around the organization today. Yes, sir.
But you said that he's the winner of hide and seek.
Well, he lost in the end, but yeah, he got to live a pretty long life. It was like 10 years he was on the run, but he was doing all right because he had a lot of people in that part of the world that really liked him, that idolized him as a hero. He came from a super rich, oil-rich Saudi Arabian family too. So, yeah, I mean, he stuck around. But yeah, they what was cool though is they were able to collect a lot of information to catch other terrorists because he had a bunch of computers, stuff like that. So, of course, Al Qaeda will inspire other organizations such as ISIS and stuff like that, which are still causing problems in places like Syria today. So, oh yeah, bad dude. Hey folks, we're going to end our stream here for today. I do have something I'm going to scan and send to you later. This afternoon, I intend on putting on Google Classroom the things we're going to have for our tests next Thursday. So remember, I'm going to give you 4 prompts. You're going to pick 2 of those 4 prompts and write mini essays in class on them for your test on Thursday. I probably won't be here Tuesday because I got to go do some administrative stuff and all that. So, all right, talk to you later, kids. Turn off.